Welcome to another CEO Wisdom podcast. We have Anton Umnov with us today. He's founder and CEO at Helica. He's also an investor. It's not his first startup. He started a bunch of companies, including Folium Labs. He's in Toronto. I'm in Oaxaca. He lived in Playa del Carmen in Mexico for some time. So glad to talk to fellow Canadian hybrid digital nomad Mexican here. This one is presented to you by podper.com. It's my podcasting company. If you want to start and monetize your podcast, you can go to podper.com. It is also presented by our friends at Qualia. If you want to take a supplement as a busy entrepreneur for your focus, for your memory, for your drive, go to neurohacker.com/CEO wisdom. Anton, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Yeah, good to be here. Thanks for the invite, Charles. Bring me back to the Mexican soil. As I mentioned before, I used to live there during the COVID years for a couple of years, and then also expanded after COVID. Beautiful country. Oaxaca, in particular, where you at, is a beautiful place. A bit jealous sitting here in a Toronto rainy room, if you will. Yeah.
Right. So tell us about your background and what brought you here nowadays and what attracted you to Web3.
Yeah, totally. So I think I was always Helica is company number 4 for myself. And always, I'm product guy, data science guy, always been in the tech space, focusing a lot on the data. And the first company I founded was actually back in 2015. It was a crypto exchange. It was crypto to fiat currencies exchange. It was before the Binance days, so very early on in crypto. And I think part of the attraction of the space was the fact that I went to one of the tech schools, Waterloo in Canada, which is kind of like MIT, I guess, of Canada here, where you almost like encouraged to don't worry about curriculums, don't worry about all the badge value and kind of MBAs and things like that. Try what you want to try. If you have a passion, no obligations. Do it early, fail fast, and kind of move forward. And so from that angle, I think focusing on the tech and focusing on the most complex tech, as I see it personally, which is blockchain, was the early attraction. Was the early attraction in the space. So yeah, I was always super bullish on that.
And tell us about your previous startups because it seems you went into biotech at some point, like you went into various fields, right? What did you learn from this and why did this ultimately brought you to Web3?
Yeah, I think like my main mantra was always I'm kind of high risk taking guy. That's why my fiance, she is more on a corporate job level, so we're trying to hedge the risks. But you know the way I look at at starting the companies, it's usually very early, right? So I was very early in a on the fintech side when it came about, I guess like 10 years or so now. Biotech side was also early because it was done in conjunction with the cannabis legalization in Canada and in US. So the products that we were building were aimed at monetizing essentially this legalization wave. And same came for Web3. So when I started Helica about a year and a half ago, it was very early of the Web3 days, and in particular as it relates to the games, what we're focusing on. So the main thesis was not necessarily to start, gaming company or buy a tech company or tech company in general, but more so kind of my excitement about being very early, ability to live kind of like 5 to 10 years in the future. If you work with those companies, ability to see what's coming. So that was the main driver versus necessarily focusing on what is the right category to be slotted in. And gaming is interesting as well because I think while Helica, you might perceive it as a crypto company, we're not really a crypto company. We're just focusing on building infrastructure analytics for computer games at scale. It just happens to be that computer game industry is doing a bit pivot right now away from building traditional things on PlayStation, Xbox, and things like that. Many of the big game studios like Ubisoft, they leverage blockchain technology for various reasons, but happy to talk about it as well.
And with all these startups so far, you said you were top risk taker. So how successful has that strategy of yours being so far? And have you modified your appetite for risks so far? Because normally challenges and failures come along the way when you're a high risk taker.
Yeah, losing weight as we speak. I see that you're working out as we speak. I'm kind of losing weight as we speak, being in a high risk category. But what's interesting here is how do you manage the risk when you're in those businesses, right? And because my specialty is data analytics as well, I think that's one of the ways to mitigate this risk, because whether the industry is in expanded pie, whether it's growing, whether it's declining, at the end of the day, most of the companies are relying on data in most cases, pretty much in all of the cases. So whether it's shrinking pie, expanding pie, I think providing data analytics, infrastructure, data science, AI type of products to the industry allows you to kind of to mitigate some of the risks. And so more and more with time, I was focusing on that, and that's what Helica is all about today.
And what do you say to people that think that Web3 and crypto is vaporware? Can that be a good investment? Can it scale? Can it derive like real world product and bring in profits as an investor?
Like honestly, for example, me, I'm not even tracking the coin prices. I mean, obviously, I'm aware what's happening in the last couple of days and things like that, but I'm not really tracking it. So for me, it was always kind of funny, to be honest with you, when people saying, "Oh my God, this coin is up plus whatever, plus 20% versus last year." People forget about the macro picture as well. And I don't really personally look at the prices of different coins and all of that fun stuff, because at the end of the day, we're focusing on the underlying tech that we're deploying, right? And so the underlying tech is all about using the blockchain ability for in the context of computer games, ability for the players to track their ownership. I don't know if you know, but I used to be semi-pro, for example, in Counter-Strike CS back in the days. There was one guy who purchased AK-47 for CS game a year ago and paid, I think, like $500,000 or $1 million. And somebody who might be passionate, why don't we buy this skin in the game? But the thing is, what blockchain technology allows you to do is to be able to own those assets, so you can literally monetize the time that you're working on. If you think about like Instagram, for example, people spend a lot of hours on Instagram. Instagram doesn't really pay you any money for that, right? So they position it as targeted ads and things like that. But I think the blockchain allows you to do that, because the more time you spend, you're actually able literally to monetize this time in the context of games through owning those assets, ability to trade them and things like that. So overall, we're seeing pretty big trend from both users, from players, from real people who play the games. They saying, hey, if I'm spending $500,000 on a K47 for specific game, why give me some protection, give me some almost like IP rights, give me some acknowledgement that, hey, I invested so much time in CS. And then on a video game front, on the publisher front, what was happening, and you probably more aware than everyone else, than anyone else about it, is that Apple and some of the other shops, they're becoming more strict on advertising. There've been some IDFA changes that are impacting the industry. So the bottom line is, it's very hard for somebody who is building a product to be able to monetize, to launch it on those distribution platforms like Apple. And so naturally, those companies like Ubisoft, they are looking for the new revenue streams, and blockchain is one of the new revenue streams for them as well, because they can sell different assets. So it's a marketplace that I feel like have started to collapse together to become a marketplace in the last couple of years. Players are looking for ownership. Revenues of the game studios are falling, and that's why we're seeing big takeoff of the Web3 in US, but also in APAC and Asia, which is the big market for Helica.
Right, I can see it. As a former gamer myself, was the best hunter. Well, I was the best PvP player in World of Warcraft in 2010, I think. Like when it was level 70, I was also one of the
Yeah.
top Call of Duty player
Yeah.
back then. CUD 4 and Black Ops and all of that. I think I had a ratio of like 2.72 or something like that. Um, and I was into camper, I was always on and hunting. Um, but I stopped playing video games when I became an entrepreneur. I sort of gamified my business. So why haven't you scaled your gamer career? And can't we like convert our business into like a full-on fledged game, so that when you come to this computer, you're like gaming? What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, for sure. Like you just have to remember that first and foremost, I'm the product guy. right? So I actually view games as the product. People forget that games is a B2C product, like any other app. Sure, of course, it's about fun, it's about the game mechanics and things like that. But people forget that it's not only about fun, it's a lot about mathematics on the back end. So simple example would be like slot machine games or social casino games, right? So when you think about it, if you lose the slot machine like 5 times, you're likely to walk away and go have some mezcal in a restaurant right now. But if we actually let the player win at least once, chances are, Charles, that you're going to be playing for another 5 to 10 hours in a game, right? So from that angle, that's why I never wanted to become the gamer, if you will, or being the gaming guy. Because again, for me, it's a product. Like in any other B2C products, it's about user acquisition, it's about retention, it's about engaging the audience. So I look at it as holistic kind of like cycle, like any other product. Just games happen to be the most complex product, but it's fun and it's real time and it's global versus any other app. But I'm excited to build great products that will impact a lot of people, a lot of people. And so on the Helica front, because gaming is a highly competitive space, right? Especially with the Gen AI and other tools that are hitting the market now, anyone can build a game now. We're very close, for example, I'm personally very close with the Telegram ecosystem. The idea of the mini games, I don't know if you played any of those hamster combat, clickers, whatever the case is. People spend like hours doing it. But the bottom line is anyone can do it today. And so that's why in the Helica and with the team we decided to focus on being the plumbers of those apps, ability again to provide infrastructure, analytics, user acquisition, all of the other geeky stuff that we're doing to help the teams to focus on what they're doing the best, which is build fun, and we help them to monetize the audience and retain the people.
Yeah, to what you were saying with the casino, I think PvP is different. You can have a drastic advantage against other humans. I think playing an AI would be quite dramatically bad, for humans. It would pretty much beat us all the time. And regarding this, do you feel that as AGI is advancing and we'll probably have these AI oligarchs and people that are plugged to video games and just being consumed by these full video games and porn and AI girlfriends and all of that, do you think we're creating a world of two lanes in which there's people that create the game and people that are stuck in it, like Ready Player One, sort of?
Yeah, honestly, like I remember when the term Web3 came about, it took me like half a year to figure out what the hell is Web3. Because when I think about what you mentioned, World of Warcraft days or any other multiplayer game, I feel like people already doing it have been always doing it. Like for example, I don't know if you remember, but during the Counter-Strike days, there was this notion of the LAN clubs. I think you from Montreal, from Quebec, and Toronto definitely we had it where people would spend like nights playing the game. So I think it was already there. I don't think there's like nothing new about it. People escape reality different levels. Having AI girlfriend, that's kind of different matter if you will. But as far as spending time in online worlds and being and having desire to disconnect from real world, sensing kind of the ground, I think it's been there for a while. Now, whether it's going to accelerate, who knows? But that's my POV.
I think it's gonna accelerate. Like, I think these companies are great at harvesting human nature and serotonin systems. We're all addicts in the end. It's just like finding what you like, whether it's orange juice or video games or spending time in nature. So yeah, and a lot of companies are exploiting that. Um, I want to talk about Helica. It's quite impressive what you achieved in such a short amount of time. So 8 million Series A, and now you're launching a fund of 50 million, an accelerator to invest in Web3 companies. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah. So I think the context is when we came to the market, obviously there's a lot of players already in the space, like in any category, right? So you have a whole bunch of players. Many people raised more money, some people didn't raise at all. And I think what we've done differently on the Helica side is that we never had this perfectionist idea that we want to build a product for the next year or next 2 years and then have a magic reveal party at some kind of conference to say, hey guys, here we are. So we actually took a very different approach from the product side, which I've always been doing. Let's start doing weekly sprints. Let's start shipping out different features, different MVPs, if you will, very early. And let's get the customers' feedback right away. And I know most people say they have agile approach to that. But I feel like at Helica, we had a hyper agile approach, which is let's put something raw out there, almost like on PowerPoint, if you will. Let's get the customers' feedback. We're gonna have very bad feedback from the customers as expected. But in this way, we decided to build very quickly, also aligning and understanding what the customers are looking for today. For example, one of the big products that we're working on, we call it AI optimization engine. The thing is, if we would release it on the market a year ago, nobody would buy it. Nobody needs it. You just have to understand where the customers are in their market development journey, especially in Web3, because it's a very immature industry. I mean, we just launched Bitcoin ETF a couple months ago, which is like the most basic financial product you can have, right? So I think that's what really helped us to grow quickly. And then in terms of Helica Ventures or Helica Accelerate front, so it became pretty clear that during the bear market that we experienced last year in tech and also in Web3, we started seeing a lot of teams, we're chatting obviously with a lot of teams that are building the games, that are building the apps, that are very strong teams that have a very good product, but they kind of shelved some of their passion literally on the shelf because they could not raise capital, or they could not get support from the market to be able to launch it. People were not ready for their products. And from that angle, we expanded the business also to support those younger teams through Helica Accelerate, as we call it, getting additional capital, partnering up with some VCs in the space, so we can fast track the companies that we are very bullish on. And we can say that Helica is a bit more objective on who we're bullish on, just because we have a lot of data. We have some benchmarks, for example, about the games, how your retention is looking. Is it on par, or is it below or above the market, right? So we have better quantitative way to assess the games, because usually it's very hard to do.
Right. And this year, what are your priorities as a CEO?
Yeah. So we're focusing a lot on expanding our business, and we started about a year ago, focusing the business on expanding it from US, Europe to Asia. So we have the teams on the ground and office in Tokyo and Korea. So lots of strong teams we're seeing in APAC. In some cases, they have very more stringent regulations in crypto in some of the Asian countries. In some cases, it's actually more loose than US or than Canada, but we're seeing a lot of teams experimenting with different gameplays. And because we have a pretty good view, top of the funnel, what are the games that are coming in the next year or so, we're pretty bullish on that. Because honestly, like the first wave of the Web3 games, like last year or the year before, they were okay. But I personally would not play a lot of them. Not that I'm the target market, but so focusing on Asia expansion. Second thing is, I would say we're very bullish on what Telegram is doing to compete with Apple, to compete with Google. Some of your audience might not be aware, because US is geo-fenced from some of the features that Telegram is releasing, like their wallet. It's becoming essentially the social media app at full capacity outside of the messenger. And so doubling down and supporting Telegram ecosystem to make sure that they win this race, it would be second priority for us.
What do you think of Trump's announcement to buy a bunch of Bitcoin if he comes back into power?
Like as I mentioned, like for me personally, the price fluctuations of the Bitcoin and others is like it's irrelevant. It's really irrelevant. I watch Bloomberg Crypto once a while, and people are only focusing on the price action of different coins. Again, we're focusing on the underlying tech, which is the blockchain, like it's hardcore engineering. That's what we're focusing on. And whether somebody would launch a coin, a token, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, we're actually treating it purely as engineering exercise, and I think whether Trump buys it, whether he sells it, it doesn't really impact our business at all.
Right. And what recent video games have caught your attention? I certainly know that when I was gaming, Rocket League was the most fun video game that I played, and I love how they gamified it and studied their business model a tad. So, what video game companies and precise video games are you studying nowadays?
Yeah. What's interesting for us is that because we're supporting many of those companies that work with us usually 1 year before the game is launched, if not longer. We have a lot of access to the alpha test or kind of early gameplays, if you will. So what's been interesting actually is what's happening in Japan. We're seeing that many of the big conglomerates like Sega and some of the other ones, they started thinking, Sony, there was some announcements done recently. They started thinking about how can we launch something interesting in the space. And so the bigger trend outside of those Japanese companies is that we will start to see bigger IP without kind of calling out the names that you used to play. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned some of them. There's a whole bunch of more bigger IP that is moving to the Web3 space. In terms of genres, I would say, because many of those companies we work with, so I don't want to call out specific companies, but very bullish on shooters. I think they're doing something interesting in the space. Very bullish on trading card games. Personally, I'm not a trading card guy, but this is a perfect use case for the blockchain in particular. I don't know if you ever collected cards back in school or whatever university, but you collect and you swap the cards, right? So it's almost like perfect case for the NFTs for the games as well. So I think first party shooters, trading card games, and I think social gaming is also the big thing where it's less so about the games, it's providing gamified experiences. Like, TikTok is a good example. Telegram is innovating in a space where while socializing with your audience, you can also introduce gamified elements. Like, I don't know if you ever tried learning Spanish using Duolingo. But think about Duolingo. Duolingo was created, I think, like 10 years ago or so. Think about Duolingo on steroids. And I think that's what's coming on a social gaming front.
How do you acquire your customers and who's your ICP?
Honestly, like Helico never meant to be a SaaS company in a sense that we're actually doubling down a lot to work with our customers. So we're not just providing, dashboards, analytics, and things like that, because our revenue model is tied to the success of the game. So the more successful our customer will be, the more money we will make because we're a for-profit business. And so today we work with about 50 different customers. So we've been pretty selective in a sense that we want to make sure that the teams that are building the games, they have done it before. So we have a pretty equal mix between the customers in US, Asia, and in Europe now. Initially, it was only US and Canada to start.
So outreach, LinkedIn outreach, like I see you
Uh,
have Kaufman leading your sales. So how do you get in touch with your customers?
Not really. Like we don't really do that. So I think the very first customer that I personally signed was Yuga Labs back in the day, year and a half ago. And I think honestly after that, because there was not too many strong gaming teams to pick from. It's not. That's why I'm saying there's not even ability to do a SaaS market, because if you doing the proper due diligence on the games, you'll see that it's a finite number of customers, which is growing a lot. So I think honestly it was word of mouth. I think conferences plays a big role. All of our guys are coming from the gaming side. So we just talk to a lot of people and people know each other in the space. So I think it's been mostly word of mouth, quite frankly. We don't do any LinkedIn campaigns. We don't do any ads or anything like that.
Right. And the model is that they pay you for a long duration to integrate your technology.
Yeah, yeah. So we have some baseline SaaS fees for analytics, different products, but we also have almost like performance-based fees for the live ops products that we're having. So if we're able to improve the game revenue or the gameplay from the baseline to X, we might be able to take a cut on that. And customers are happy with that just because there's no risk. If we're not able to improve it, who cares? If we're able to improve it, everyone wins. So we have a baseline fees. We deploy all of our gaming analysts, game devs to work with the customers, but also if we're successful, we would be asking for the revenue share of the company.
Roger that. That's quite exciting. Well, Anton, thank you for showing up today and sharing all that value. Where can people find out more about you?
LinkedIn, and I think in crypto we use a lot of Telegram. So Telegram would be the right way to communicate. And yeah, good was good to be here, Charles.